the favorite at 2 to
He's
1.
a terrible bet
On
at 3 to
paper.
1.
I love the odds of eight.
So who are we all
It's
picking?
this field that is not a good bet.
They're off.
Hi, everybody. Dan Illman, Mike Beer for BC Focus, taking a look at the top contenders for this year's Breeders' Cup Filly and Mare Sprint. Before we do take a peek at them, however, I have to remind everyone, Breeders' Cup Betting Challenge, one of the greatest tournaments in all of racing, $1.25 million. That's the cash prize for the BCBC, November 1st and 2nd during the Breeders' Cup at Del Mar. The Breeders' Cup Classic on Saturday is race number 8. It is the anchor leg of a pick 5. It is the first leg of a pick 5. Lots of ways to make money in this year's Breeders' Cup Classic. Let's take a look at the field for the Breeders' Cup Filly and Mare Sprint. We're listed in odds order, preliminary odds, of course. We haven't even drawn post positions. The preliminary odds were compiled by Daily Racing Form's Brad Free, and I can see Ways and Means as the favorite. Yes, she is a 3-year-old facing elders, but she's been good for most of her career, and it looks like her last race was just a good prep.
Yeah, she's just been a quality horse right from the start, Dan. And listen, her connections knew they had a good horse on their hands, so they tried to get her to the Kentucky Oaks this year. They made it. It's just didn't quite work out for her as a distance horse. They've cut her back for her last 3 starts, and it's nothing but dominant performances and fast time.
She won the preeminent race for 3-year-old filly sprinters, the Test 2 starts back at Saratoga. I talked to Chad Brown earlier this week. He said he didn't want to run her in the Breeders' Cup going 7 off the layoff. So he ran her here in the Gallant Bloom. I think he was trying to find an easy spot. He also caught a very talented horse in Nick Style, but Ways and Means overcame Nick Style and overcame a sloppy track and posted a really good 101 buyer.
Yeah, we already knew going into this race that she liked a wet track, so it was no surprise to see her handle this, Dan. But yeah, could have been a scary rival. Nick Styles very lightly raced and has had some issues, but she's a quality filly. Ways and Means had no trouble overtaking her in the stretch.
Speaking to trainer Steve Asmussen earlier this month about Society, Steve mentioned he wanted a 2-race campaign leading into the Breeders' Cup for her this year. 2 races at the Breeders' Cup distance of 7/8 of a mile. Mission accomplished. She was 3rd behind Vahva in the Chicago and then turned the tables on that horse in the Ballerina, this race right here. And Society, what I liked about this performance, Mike, was she showed the willingness just to sit off another horse early. She sat 2nd, made the lead, and now she holds off the turn-backing Scylla on the outside, Vahva on the rail. These are 3 quality horses.
I agree. This could be the key race as far as leading into the Breeders' Cup Filly. My sprint goes. Listen, I guess glad to see that the 2-race campaign worked out for Asmussen. Nothing could go wrong there. I hope he presses on for the rest of his career, getting two races into horses on the way to the Breeders' Cup. That's great stuff. Listen, Society is a really nice horse. What I liked most about that win we just watched in is she did it from off the pace there. She's always been a little bit of a speed horse. She looked perfectly comfortable doing it last time.
While Society has only had 2 starts this year, Steve has had sent out Zeitlos 8 times, 6 wins, and it looks like she's just getting good as late developing Curlins are wont to do. Here's her win in the Thoroughbred Club of America at Keeneland on October the 5th. And Mike, Zeitlos had to overcome at least the track this day. It seemed like speed was doing very, very well. Zeitlos got a really nice trip and ride. The rail opens up and she does the rest. Yes, she overcame the bias. I just am wondering what she beat.
Yeah, maybe wasn't the strongest field in the world. And I wonder if just being on the rail, maybe you didn't want to be closing outside, Dan, on this track, but maybe closing inside was okay. Either way, she wins a lot of races, man. Her top race doesn't really match up that well with the major players in here as far as figures go. But man, she likes to win races. She'll probably have a little bit of pace in front of her too.
Let's talk a little bit about Vahva, who's 3rd on the list. And yes, she was beaten last time out in the Ballerina. Cherie DeVoe has always maintained that Vahva maybe just doesn't care for Saratoga, doesn't train as well over it. She didn't run as great in the coaching. She hasn't run well over the surface in the past. She ran well in the Ballerina. She was just simply 3rd best. I like this filly a lot, Mike. I really think her tactical speed plays well in the Breeders' Cup.
I agree. I mean, yeah, you have to get past the Ballerina, I guess, because when you just watch the race, Dan, she had a perfectly good trip in that race. There was room up the inside for her in the stretch, and she just sort of flattened out there after getting a look at it. Maybe she didn't want to be rallying up the inside in there. Most of her other races, they sort of get her to the outside, and she's a really, really game horse. If she can bounce back here and show up at Del Mar with her top effort, she's going to be a handful in this race.
Scylla won a couple of graded stakes races going 2 turns earlier this year, but after finishing second to the now retired Close Hatches in the Grade 1 Clement L. Hirsch, the great Bill Mott decided to turn her back in the Ballerina, and I think 7 Furlongs hits her right between the eyes as long as she gets the right pace scenario. And you know, she actually showed some good speed in the Ballerina to stay within striking range. I have a feeling we've yet to see her best.
I agree. She got a good trip. She's another one. Got a good trip in the Ballerina. I don't think you'd give her an excuse in there, but she just happened to be behind Society right from the start and had to try to chase her down through the stretch. She couldn't do it, but I still feel like she ran a perfectly good race and could move forward off of it.
Let's take a look at 6 through 10. I want to start by talking about Soul of an Angel, who gave champion mare Idiomatic all she could handle in the Grade 3 Molly Pitcher going two turns, 3 starts back. She was no match for Idiomatic and Raging Sea when they rematched in the Personal Ensign. Safi Joseph, I think, has always liked this horse as a late-running one-turn horse, whether it's a race like the One-Turn Mile, which she won the Ruffian way back in May, or her last race, the Princess Rooney, where she rallied from last against a weaker field. She's a hard-hitting sort. She's likely going to get outrun early in this race. The question is, Mike, does she really have the class at this distance to face these kind of horses?
I don't know. It's a major question, but she's kind of easy to fall for when you just start going through the 5. Listen, Safi's only had her for the last 5 races. Everything she did prior to that, you'd just be sort of shocked at what she's done in those last 5 races. Especially the 2 around 1 turn, Dan. The 1-turn mile, the Grade 2 at Aqueduct, she was really good winning that race. Cut her back last time. I know she maybe didn't beat that strong of a field, but she was really good winning there too.
One Magic Filly got on my radar when I was handicapping the Pennsylvania Derby and taking a look at some of the workouts for Stronghold, who ended up finishing second in that race. And Stronghold was working in company with One Magic Filly, and One Magic Filly was getting the better of him. He's a pretty good horse, and One Magic Filly came back with a pretty good race in her graded stakes debut. She got the better of Sweet Azteca, who for one reason or another did not run well at all that day. It was an unseasonably hot day. She handled it very, very well.
Listen, you can't knock this filly. I mean, she's going to have her work cut out for her if they press on to the Breeders' Cup against, the top 5 or so horses that we've already talked about. But she's really lightly raced. She's already run pretty fast. She doesn't need the lead to be effective. I mean, it feels like there's a ton of upside here. She's just going to have to move forward.
Kirsten Bosch is coming into this race relatively fresh with only 1 start since February. I did not like her run in the Chillingworth behind One Magic Filly. To me, she's the kind of filly that just needs a lot of pace and a complete meltdown.
Yeah, I wouldn't be too hard on her for the last one. That was first back from a really long layoff, maybe to shake some rust off if they're going to point for the Breeders' Cup. Just hasn't gotten a campaign going as a 5-year-old. I'll admit that I'm a huge fan of hers. I doubt that she could beat this field without catching, 1 or 2 breaks, but she'll sit back and make one run, maybe get a piece of this thing.
Mike, the most fascinating entrant is the number 9 Pleasant, a horse who returned from over a year layoff to win a second-level allowance race at Los Alamitos. It was only a 91 Beyer speed figure. She has never raced in a graded stakes of any kind, and Bob Baffert's going to enter her here.
Yeah, she looked to have a ton of potential before. I guess she had some kind of an issue last summer, and she was away for a long time. She did look really good off the layoff last time, and this is obviously a really tall order, but she can clearly run.
And Pandora's Gift has run well on synthetic in her career. She's run well on turf, but this would be her dirt debut if she opts for this spot. It's a lot to ask for a filly. It's very consistent.
Yeah, she really is. Not my kind of horse, but she's shipped over here for 2 starts, 1 on synthetic, 1 on turf. She ran well in both of those races.
We'll see if Ways and Means can keep the streak rolling. She is the preliminary morning line favorite for a wide open edition of the Breeders' Cup Filly and Mare Sprint. Hey buddy, you look like you're in need of a winner, and just remember, if you like and subscribe right over here, you can get all of the great content on DRF.com, including Race of the Day, stakes previews, and lots more, featuring me and my superb selections. Trust me, you're not going to regret it.